So good morning children. So in today's class, let us discuss about the early Mughals, Babur and Humayun. So from here onwards, we are going to study about the Mughal Empire. So let me remind you what you have studied in your previous chapters. So in your previous chapters, you have studied about the Delhi Sultanate and the five dynasties, and ending with the Lodi dynasty. The last ruler, Ibrahim Lodi, he was a very arrogant ruler towards his ministers. He was very tough and very arrogant, and his ministers belonged to Afghanistan. And so these Afghan nobles were not happy with the harsh treatment given by Ibrahim Lodi. So, because of this nature of Ibrahim Lodi, these Afghan nobles will go to Babur, who was the very powerful ruler by then establishing himself in Afghanistan, and they will invite Babur to attack India. And Babur, with a plan, he will fight a battle with Ibrahim Lodi, and in that battle of Panipat, he'll defeat Ibrahim Lodi, and Babur becomes the founder of Mughal rule in India. So after the Delhi Sultanate rule in India, it is continued by the Babur's rule, or we can call it as the Mughals rule will start after the Delhi Sultanate. So the Delhi Sultanate will end. All the five dynasties will rule for a period of more than 250 to 300 years, and later on it starts with again Babur and the Mughal rule. So here we are going to start today. Who are these early Mughals? Babur and Humayun, how they came to India, how they occupied, and what were the consequences, and all such details. So let us begin the how the Mughals entered into India. So at the onset of the 16th century, India presented a picture of political disunity and fragmentation. So once after the Ibrahim Lodi's losing battle, or you can call it was the time of Ibrahim Lodi's aggressive policy towards his nobles, and even 16th century was about to begin by that time. What were the situations in the country under the Lodis? What were the situation? So a picture of political disunity and fragmentation was there. That means as Lodi lost the battle, there was no central authority who could control all the empire. So various kingdoms under the Delhi control, now politically they were not united. So they were declaring independence themselves, and they were becoming autonomous. Suppose under Ibrahim Lodi there were many kingdoms. So these all kingdoms together were called as Delhi Sultanate. Delhi as headquarters, Lodi used to rule. And now when Lodi lost the battle, these all kingdoms, they declared themselves independence, or they proclaimed themselves independence, and they started living independently. Politically, each one of these kingdom was separate. So that is called political disunity. There was no central authority to control all these kingdoms as one empire, and they were fragmented. Fragmented means they were also fighting among each other. These kingdoms, which were once under a unity under the Delhi control, now they have become fragmented. Fragmented means they were also fighting with each other. Also, they were not united. The mighty Delhi Sultanate was beset with problems. So what do you mean by word beset here? Beset means causing trouble. Okay. So the Delhi Sultanate was in great trouble with lot of problems because of this kind of disintegration and disunity. This kind of fragmentation and disunity among the various kingdoms under Delhi Sultanate. Now there is no more Delhi Sultanate because Lodi lost the battle, but still the Delhi headquarters lost control over all its territories. So this situation was present in those days, and it created a lot of troubles to Delhi Sultanate. it had limited power which was restricted to in and around Delhi. So, being Delhi as headquarters, there was very less control over all the kingdoms. Nobody were listening to the Delhi. After Lodi, I think maybe there was no one to rule. Whoever was there at that point of time, they were unable to control all these kingdoms which were trying to become independent. And the Vijayanagara and Bahmani kingdoms had disintegrated into several small kingdoms. So even you take at the Deccan region of India, there also there was a clear division, and Vijayanagara and Bahmani kingdoms also got disintegrated into small kingdoms. See, this Vijayanagara and Bahmani we will discuss in the later part of the chapters. So as continuation of Delhi Sultanate, I am discussing this Mughals. So at the Deccan region, Vijayanagara and Bahmani, which were once the powerful kingdoms, they also started disintegrating. So by this time, what you need to understand is India, which was kept as one, okay, so which was during the Delhi Sultanate, or you take Bahmanis and this Vijayanagara, it was almost like one, but now it was slowly disintegrating into many small kingdoms. Finally, what you have to remember is India was disintegrating into small fragments of kingdoms. It was no more under one control or one authority. The absence of any central authority and the constant war among the small kingdoms offered a perfect opportunity for Jahiruddin Muhammad Babur to invade and consolidate the whole of India. So this kind of disintegration of kingdoms and constant fight among these kingdoms. So these kingdoms, small kingdoms which got disintegrated, they started fighting for each other. See, naturally a small kingdom would try to fight with other small kingdom to expand their kingdoms. So this constant wars were happening, and India was in political turmoil. Turmoil means it's in a great trouble. And this was found as a great opportunity by Jahiruddin Muhammad Babur. So Babur found it as a great opportunity because politically these kingdoms were fighting with each other, and he also thought this is a great opportunity, and he invaded India and he tried to consolidate the whole of India. Consolidate means getting all these kingdoms under one control and making India as a one part, as one empire. He thus began his journey to lay the foundations of the Mughal Empire in India. So thus Babur took this as an advantage, and he was also by this time invited by the Afghan nobles of Ibrahim Lodi, and later he invaded to India. And how we will see how he founded the Mughal dynasty. The Mughals established a mighty empire in the subcontinent that lasted for over 300 years. So with the foundations of Babur, the Mughals have started their ruling in India, and for almost a period of 300 years and more than this, the Mughals have controlled India, and these Mughals were responsible for making India politically united and bringing back all the fragments that have been formed into one large empire. So let us see how the Mughals have established themselves in India. So this was almost for a period of 300 years, the Mughal rule. So under their rule, a centralized administration commanding a massive standing army was established. So after Babur's entry into India by defeating Ibrahim Lodi, then he could establish a centralized administration. What do you mean by here centralized administration? See, Delhi was headquarters, and lot of kingdoms in India were previously under its control. But during the time of Ibrahim Lodi, these all kingdoms became independent. Now what Babur did was, he consolidated all these fragments This is one kingdom, this is another kingdom, this is another kingdom. So these are all kingdoms independent. Now what he did, he made all these kingdoms with Delhi as headquarters as one unit. Here all fragmented, here all, they were all made as one large empire, and Delhi was the centralized administrative headquarters. So at the height of its glory, the empire extended from Afghanistan in the northwest to the Deccan in the south. So starting with Babur and with many other rulers coming up with Delhi as headquarters, the Mughal Empire was very successful, and the extent of Mughal Empire was so vast. So if you consider just this is a rough map which I am drawing. If you consider this as India map, so it extended from almost Afghanistan in the northwest. So here Afghanistan and all from the northwest to the Deccan in the south. So almost it was all like this. So to the Deccan region in the south, this all region was brought under Mughals. So such was the successful rule of Mughals. And the Mughals ruled over people diverse in culture, religion and geography, and united them under the same political rule for a long time. You can see the vastness of the Mughals in India, in Indian subcontinent. So almost northwest Afghanistan to Deccan, and almost the eastern part of India was under the control of Mughals. So this vast area was having people, and these people were not of uniform language and culture. Diverse cultures, diverse language speaking people. Geographically, the region was very much different. People of different languages used to live in this vast empire, and also different cultures were there in the people. So under the Mughal Empire, how was the society? Means the society was with different cultures, different religions. Geographically the land was different, and even though such diversity was there, they were all politically under the control of Mughals. So the political unity was brought among all these people in spite of their cultural, religious and geographical differences. And so they were all brought under the same political rule for a long period of time. So for almost a period of 300 years, this area in Indian subcontinent was kept as one political unit by the Mughals. The Mughals were people of great martial lineage. That means the kind of warfare they do is very, very effective. So how they got this kind of warfare means they were the descendants. Descendant means their ancestors were Mongols. So these people were the successors of Mongols. Mongols were there, and later their generations were later known as Mughals. Okay, so they are the descendants of Mongols of Central Asia. So Mongols were very powerful warrior tribes who were living in this Central Asian region. The later generations of Mongols were called as Mughals. So Taimur of the Timurid clan. So in Mongols there are various clans again, Mongol tribes, there are various clans. Like one of the clan was Timurid clan, and Mughal is the Persian word for Mongol. So in Persia, a Mongol is called as Mughal in Persian language. So by this we can understand that the Mughals have created a united vast empire in India, and they were the descendants of Mongols. They were the descendants of Mongols. In Persian language, Mughal means Mongol, and Babur established the Mughal rule in India. So who was the founder of this Mughal rule in India? It was Babur, which reigned for more than 3 centuries. That means the foundation laid by Babur in India, it was successful, and the later rulers of Babur continued that kind of successful ruling, and the Mughal rule was for almost a period of 300 years or 3 centuries. Let us see the most notable rulers of the Mughal dynasty. So you can see the rulers of the successful rulers of Mughals here, starting with Babur, followed by his son Humayun, and later his son Akbar, later his son Jahangir, later Shah Jahan, Aurangzeb, and the later Mughals. They were not that prominent, but these all rulers were called as early Mughals. Okay, and the remaining were called as later Mughals. So in later Mughals, you can find one of the prominent man like Aurangzeb and all. But here Babur, Humayun, Akbar, Jahangir, Shah Jahan, and sorry, not in later Mughals. After Aurangzeb, the later Mughal rulers were called as they were weak rulers. So there historically they were different approach was seen there. So that we will discuss in later Mughals. So these are the most powerful and notable Mughal rulers in the Mughal history. So the Babur's name is derived from the Persian word Babur, which means tiger. So the first and foremost ruler was Babur, and in Persia Babur means tiger. So Babur was a direct descendant of Mongol conqueror Genghis Khan from his mother's side, Turkish conqueror Amir Timur from his father's side. That means the parents of Babur, they have their ancestral history with Genghis Khan and Amir Timur. So mother's history, historically, mother was from Genghis Khan's side and father was from Amir Timur, the Turkish the Turkish tribal leader. So here Babur was having a very powerful background, if you refer. Like his mother was, she was descendant of Genghis Khan, and his father was Amir Timur's descendant. So like this, he received a very glorious background. So how was Babur in his early years? So in the Central Asian region, initially Babur was a ruler. Okay. So let us see what was happening in that Central Asian region. Babur became the ruler of a smaller principality called Farghana in Central Asia. So he was a ruler of small principality. Principality means like he was a young prince. So he would be given a very smaller portion of territory. So he was in charge of such a smaller principality called Farghana in Central Asia. He was just looking after this place called Farghana, and at the young age of 11 years. So at a very young age, being a prince of Central Asia, he used to look after a small place called Farghana, and he later occupied Samarkand. So he later in Central Asian region, first he was in charge of a place called Farghana, and later he occupied another place called Samarkand. So that shows that he was a very efficient person. However, in 3 years, Babur lost both Samarkand and Farghana and became a landless ruler for a brief period. So in his initial days, he was controlling almost a very good amount of territory, a very good vast amount of territory, but very soon with his powerful conquest of others, he lost both Farghana and Samarkand, and he was remaining like a landless emperor or landless ruler for a very short period of time. So this was historical beginning of Babur during his early days in Central Asia. Still Babur didn't arrive in India. I am speaking about his days in Central Asia. So however, Babur, he did not lose hopes. So even though he lost both of his places, Farghana and Samarkand, to his enemies, he was never losing hope of regaining power. So he was very particular and he was very determined to bring back his territories, and he was very confident of those. Babur's courage and determination, paired with his engaging qualities and strong leadership skills, helped him to become the ruler of Kabul in Afghanistan. So, when he lost this Farghana and Samarkand, he did not lose hope. He immediately regained with confidence, built a powerful army very soon, and with his leadership skills, he could even later become a ruler of a place called Kabul in Afghanistan. So he could control vast amount of territory in Afghanistan in later days. In later on days, he built a powerful army with his efficient and leadership skills. Not only Farghana and Samarkand, he could even bring a lot more of territories under his control in that Central Asian region, and especially he was controlling this Kabul region in a very powerful manner. So thus Babur emerged as a powerful person in the Central Asian region. So Babur, on one hand, he has become very powerful in the Kabul region, which is in Afghanistan. So now what happened? So let us see in the map here just to make you understand. So what happened was, so here in the Afghan region, in the Kabul region, Babur was emerging very powerful, and later on, what happened in that time? When Babur was, he was the ruler of Kabul in Afghanistan, what happened in India? In 1522 CE, Babur received an opportune invitation from Daulat Khan Lodi, a rebel of Lodi dynasty, to invade North India and help him to defeat Ibrahim Lodi. So when Babur was emerging powerful in Kabul region, the Delhi was under the control of Lodis. And who was the ruler here at that time? It was Ibrahim Lodi. And Ibrahim Lodi was a very cruel and a very aggressive ruler against his nobles. So one of his noble was Daulat Khan Lodi. So he was ruling Lahore. So in the Pakistan region, we have a place called Lahore, and it was under Delhi control. For this Lahore, there was an in charge called, or a noble called Daulat Khan Lodi. Daulat Khan Lodi was very unhappy with Ibrahim Lodi because of his aggressive and cruelness of Ibrahim Lodi. See, Ibrahim Lodi used to treat all his nobles in a very cruel manner. So that he doesn't like. Daulat Khan Lodi did not like Ibrahim Lodi. So what Daulat Khan thought, he wanted to defeat Ibrahim Lodi. So to defeat Ibrahim Lodi, he thought he would better invite Babur to help him in the conquest of the Delhi or the North Indian completely. So Daulat Khan Lodi, a rebel of Lodi dynasty, to invade North India and help him to defeat Ibrahim Lodi. So Daulat Khan Lodi, he wanted to defeat Ibrahim Lodi. So to defeat Ibrahim Lodi, whose help he thought is needed? He thought he needs the help of Babur. So he invited Babur to come and help him in occupying Delhi. The oppressive, so he was, the Ibrahim Lodi was referred as oppressive Sultan. Oppressive means very unkind, very cruel ruler. So they could not bear with him. So they invited, Daulat Khan Lodi invited Babur to help him in defeating Ibrahim Lodi and occupy Delhi. So this was foreseen as a golden opportunity by Babur. Babur thought this is a great opportunity from Daulat Khan Lodi, and so that he can enter India. Babur's plans were different, but he thought, yes, now Daulat Khan Lodi is also there for him to start his conquest in India. So what Babur said after his invitation from Lodi, Daulat Khan Lodi, Babur accepted his invitation. He first raided the prosperous state of Punjab in 1524 CE. So as this man has invited him, so what happened later? he from Kabul he raided Punjab. See, Lahore is here and Kabul is here. Now, Lahore was Daulat Khan Lodi's place. Now, he invited Babur to attack Lodi's empire now. So, Babur came. Suppose here, Punjab is here. So, he attacked Punjab and he occupied it. That shows that he is into expedition on India. So, with help of Daulat Khan Lodi, he could easily occupy Punjab, which was a prosperous state. That means Punjab was a very rich state in those days. And then he returned to Kabul to prepare his conquest for Delhi. So once Babur occupied Punjab, then he went back to Kabul. For what he went back to Kabul? He wanted to prepare, or he wanted to get ready with army for his conquest of Delhi. So Delhi was the next target for Babur. So he was trying to conquer Delhi now. So he went back for preparations. Meanwhile, Daulat Khan became wary of Babur's power and prepared to attack him. So what happened now? When Babur went back and started making preparations to attack Delhi, Daulat Khan Lodi, who was the conspirer who helped Babur to attack India, he thought again Babur was a very dangerous man. Compared to Ibrahim Lodi, he thought Babur would be more dangerous to him because he understood that Babur would no longer help him to control Delhi. He's preparing plans to occupy Delhi and he wanted to become the ruler. So, knowing this idea, Daulat Khan became wary of Babur's power. That means he knows there is going to be some kind of danger from Babur. So, then what Daulat Khan Lodi did? He prepared to attack Babur now. He invited Babur firstly. Later he understood that Babur itself is a danger for his ruling. So now Daulat Khan Lodi prepared to attack Babur. So in the next year, Babur invaded India and defeated Daulat Khan. He then proceeded towards Delhi to fight Ibrahim Lodi. So Daulat Khan Lodi, he was the first person to invite Babur, and later he himself got defeated by Babur in the next year, and after defeating Daulat Khan Lodi, Babur marched towards Delhi to defeat Ibrahim Lodi. So this was a little story behind the Mughals' entry into India. And first battle of Panipat. The armies of Babur and Ibrahim Lodi met at Panipat, and even though Ibrahim Lodi had a larger army than Babur, so initially when he marched towards Delhi, both the Lodi's army and Babur's army fought at a place called Panipat. So in this place called Panipat, the battle of Panipat, the forces of Babur and Ibrahim Lodi fought. And if you compare the armies of Babur and Ibrahim Lodi, Ibrahim Lodi was having a very large army. Okay, compared to Babur, Ibrahim Lodi was having larger army. Now let us see what happened in the first battle of Panipat. So even though Ibrahim Lodi was having large army, Babur's military sense, okay, I mean to predict when we should plan and organize the warfare, in that case Babur was more intelligent than Ibrahim Lodi, and his excellent war tactics, that means planning in the war, was excellent for Babur compared to Lodi. Lodi was just having large army, but Babur, even though he is having a small army than Ibrahim Lodi, his military planning and his warfare planning and everything, also his fine artillery. Artillery means the kind of cannons, the weapons, that means the bows and arrows and guns, the firearms, this kind of weapons were more with Babur. So this resulted in the victory of Babur. Even though Ibrahim Lodi was having large army, because of the excellent planning and implementation of tactics in warfare tactics by Babur, Ibrahim Lodi lost the battle and Babur emerged victorious in the first battle of Panipat. So within a span of few hours, when Babur attacked Delhi, within a span of few hours, Ibrahim's army was crushed and overpowered. Many of his troops ran away when they saw the battle turning in the favor of Babur. So when Babur attacked Delhi, within very few hours, the soldiers of Ibrahim Lodi understood that they are going to lose the battle, and many of the soldiers even ran away, so that Babur's victory became inevitable. Inevitable means it was nobody can stop Babur's victory by this time. By sundown, that means by evening, the battle showcased all the signs of a decisive victory in the favor of Babur. So within few hours of his attack on Delhi, I think by evening there were clear signs, that means there were clear conditions established that Babur is going to emerge victorious, and as inevitable, Babur became victorious and he entered Delhi and proclaimed himself as the emperor of Hindustan. So in those days, as Hindus were the majority of people living in India, it was referred by these Central Asians as Hindustan. So Babur thus entered India, occupied Delhi from Ibrahim Lodi, and he proclaimed himself as the emperor of Hindustan. So after the first battle of Panipat, the next important battle fought by Babur was Battle of Kanwa. So the most formidable threat to Babur was Ranasanga, the mighty ruler of Mewad. So in those days, who were the other warrior kings present in India apart from the Delhi Sultans? There were Rajput kings. So there was a there was a kingdom called Mewad. This was a very prominent kingdom under Delhi those days. So Mewad was ruled by a Rajput king called Ranasanga. So this man Ranasanga, he thought that Babur's entry into India is a great threat, and he wanted to restore the great empire of Prithviraj Chauhan. So Prithviraj Chauhan was once a very famous Rajput ruler who fought battle with Muhammad Ghori, right? So after the loss in the second battle, he will lose battle, and Prithviraj Chauhan will be defeated by Ghori, and he will enter into India. This we have studied already. So now this man Ranasanga, who was a descendant of Prithviraj Chauhan, he thought he wanted to create a Rajput empire in India like his ancestor Prithviraj Chauhan. Ranasanga also wanted to create a Rajput empire in India, but Babur was already in Delhi by this time. As soon as Ranasanga realized that Babur intended to stay in India and establish a new empire, Sanga made efforts to gather a coalition force. So the Rajput king Ranasanga, he wanted to make India as a Rajput empire, but now already Babur was in Delhi. So what Ranasanga has to do now? He has to encounter Babur here. He has to first defeat Babur. So to defeat Babur, Ranasanga created a coalition force. What do you mean by coalition force? Coalition force means he gathered the support of the other Rajput kings he knew. There were many Rajput kingdoms, Mewad, Gujarat, Malwa. So like this, there were many Rajput kingdoms in those days. He took the help of all those kings. He formed an alliance with those kings and he attacked Babur. So in the Battle of Kanwa, it was fought between the Rajput forces under Ranasanga and Babur at a place called Kanwa near Agra. So Ranasanga decided to attack Babur now. So with the coalition forces or the alliances he has. So now what he did, at a place called Kanwa in Agra, the coalition forces led by the Rajput king Ranasanga and Babur's forces both fought in a fierce battle. They had a very fierce battle at a place called Kanwa. Despite the valor of the mighty Rajputana, they were no match to Babur's artillery, which comprised muskets and cannons. So, in the first battle of Panipat, he defeated. Remember these battles' names. In the battle of Panipat, first battle of Panipat, Babur defeated Ibrahim Lodi. After that, immediately he fought the battle of Kanwa. In battle of Kanwa, who fought with whom? The Rajput forces fought with Babur. So where they fought in a place called Kanwa near Agra. So what happened in this battle? The battle was favorable to Babur because Babur has introduced muskets. Muskets means guns with long barrels kind of things, and cannons. Cannons, I'll just draw the thing here. You can just visualize them. So with a long gun kind of thing, this kind of cannons. Okay. So in those days with wheels and all. So this kind of new artillery was introduced by Babur, and with this kind of gunpowder and this kind of weapons, the Rajput forces with their swords and other things, they could not withstand. So even though the Rajputs were so brave enough in fighting under this mighty artillery called the muskets and cannons, the Rajput forces got defeated and Mughals won the war and entrenched their rule over the vast expansion of central India. So what do you mean by Mughals entrenched their rule? Entrenched means they have established a strong rule over central India. Now, if you take India like this, okay, so just for your example, now Babur came to Delhi. Now many places the Rajput kings and all were here in the central India. They all fought together with Babur. Now these places were also, these forces got defeated. Now Babur even became the ruler of central India. So he not only occupied the northern part of India, but he also, as the Rajput forces lost the battle in Battle of Kanwa, he even became the control of central India. By defeating the Rajputs, Babur eradicated the greatest threat to the rule of Mughals in India. So till then, Babur's after he was victorious over Lodis, the most prominent enemies that Babur had in India were Rajputs. Now in the Battle of Kanwa, even that Rajput threat was also gone. However, it was the Battle of Chanderi which resulted in the complete submission of the mighty Rajputs. So in Battle of Chanderi, finally all the Rajput kings have surrendered to Babur and they agreed Babur to be their emperor. So in Battle of Chanderi, so as I said, Battle of Chanderi completes Babur's recapturing India. So how he captured means, like in 1528 CE, Babur laid siege to the fort of Chanderi in Malwa. So Malwa was also a very prominent kingdom and it was also a major ally. Ally means he joined hands with Ranasanga. The ruler of Malwa named Medini Roy, he joined hands with Ranasanga and fought against Babur in Battle of Kanwa also. But later, after finishing occupying the central India, so later Malwa was also attacked by Babur and Medini Roy, who was the ruler of Malwa, lost the battle. So Babur was successful in capturing the fort of Chanderi, which was in Malwa. So Malwa was controlled by King Medini Roy and he was attacked by Babur. So when Babur attacked Medini Roy, he could easily capture his fort, and that fort was called Chanderi, and hence the name of the battle was also referred as Battle of Chanderi. So in just 1 day, okay, not more than a day, Babur could easily occupy even Malwa. This Battle of Chanderi destroyed the remnants of Rajputs. That means at least Malwa was under the control of Rajputs by this time. By now, after Battle of Chanderi, almost even the last Rajput kingdom was also defeated by Babur, and nowhere in India by this time now Rajputs were controlling any territories. All Rajputs lost the war and they have surrendered to Babur. Since then, the Rajputs became subjugated allies of the Mughal dynasty in India. So, even though all the Rajputs lost the battle, they became subjugated. Subjugated means they have agreed for the terms and conditions of Babur. See, Babur was a very intelligent and able administrator. So, he allowed the Rajputs to rule themselves but to remain loyal to him. So, all the Rajput kings, they were subjugated. That means they were made loyals to Babur. They agreed the emperorship of Babur and they remained as their rulers. So now with this battle of Chanderi, what happened? Babur became the emperor and all other kingdoms in India were under the control of him, especially the central and northern part of India. Then comes the battle of Ghagra. So the threat of the Rajputs was successfully diminished by Babur. With battle of Chanderi, the Rajputs' revolt was suppressed. There was no one to revolt from Rajput side now. So all the Rajputs became subjugates of Babur now. But there was some other threat in India for Babur. So that also got ended with Battle of Ghagra. So let us see what is this Battle of Ghagra. So see, Ibrahim Lodi, to understand this Battle of Ghagra, you need to understand this point. Ibrahim Lodi was the emperor, right, in the beginning. And there were many Afghan nobles for different kingdoms in India, right? So you understand this point. Ibrahim Lodi was controlling all these kingdoms from Delhi, and these kingdoms in India were some headed by Rajputs, some headed by Afghans. Okay, so Afghans were also chiefs of certain kingdoms in India. So one among these Afghan chiefs were living in India. So Ibrahim Lodi time, he defeated Lodi, Babur defeated Lodi, and he captured Delhi. That was fine. Still, there were some chiefs, Afghan chiefs, okay, who were like rulers to certain territories in India. These Afghan chiefs who still remained in India were against Babur. Okay, so the Afghans persisted, especially in the Bengal and Bihar region. So if you take Indian portion in the eastern side of India, okay, so like so what happened was, so in the eastern part like Bengal and Bihar, still there are some Afghan people, Afghan rulers controlling certain the Bengal and Bihar regions. Babur, with his conquest, he could capture Delhi, the central Indian region from Rajputs, and now this northeastern and eastern part of India, which was Bengal and Bihar. So these regions were under the control of Afghans. Okay, who are these Afghans here? They were in charges kept by Ibrahim Lodi during his time. These Afghan chiefs were still there. For example, in Battle of Ghagra, what happened was, there was a person by name Muhammad Lodi. Okay, he was in charge of this Bihar. So in a place called Ghagra, which is in Bihar, okay, the forces of Babur fought with the Afghans leader by this time in India, known as Muhammad Lodi. So in that Battle of Ghagra, Babur defeated these rebellious Afghans or the Afghan chiefs, and he emerged victorious. Finally, even Babur was even victorious towards the Afghan chiefs who were still remaining in India by this time. And when Babur died in 1530 CE, He was the ruler in the lands of Punjab, Delhi, and the entire Gangetic as far as Bihar. So by the time Babur died in 1530, what was the places under his control? The Punjab region was under his control. So let me draw up things like this for you. So if this is the place, the Punjab region was under the control, then the Delhi was under the control of Mughals. Also, the entire Gangetic area up to Bihar. Okay, this was all brought under the control of Babur. So such a vast empire was controlled by Mughals during the time of Babur. Despite being a ruthless military general, Babur was also a great poet, writer, musician, and a scholar. So coming to the personal nature of Babur, what kind of a person he was? He was not only a ruthless military general, that means a very powerful and very efficient military general. Not only that, on the military side, he was also having another side called he was a great poet, a writer, and also he was a musician and a scholar. So these are the very finest qualities of Babur. On the other hand, he patronized, that means encouraged, art and literature, and even wrote his own biography known as Tuzuk-i-Babari or Babarnama in Persian language. So being himself a great scholar, he wrote his biography known as Tuzuk-i-Babari or Babarnama. Most of his achievements is known to the historians through the Babarnama. So historians, how they understood how Babur was and what were his conquests and all, through his book called Babarnama. So on one hand, he was a very powerful military general that is revealed through his conquests and his control over India. And on the other hand, Babur was also a very fine writer, musician, poet, and a great scholar. That how you know? Because he wrote his biography named Tuzuk-i-Babari or Babarnama in Persian language. So historians know most of his achievements through this Tuzuk-i-Babari. So Babur was a keen observer and a lover of nature, hills and valleys. So he was basically nature loving person. He is best remembered for having commissioned the laying of gardens. So for the very first time in India, laying of gardens in front of palaces and now making more greenery kind of things was started by this ruler Babur only, because he was a nature lover and a practice unknown to the subcontinent till then. So before this, even there were Lodis, there were Rajputs. They never had the practice of decorating their in front of the palaces with nice gardens and big gardens, parks and all. They were never known to Indians till then. But this man, he started this kind of laying of gardens, and he was also buried in a garden in Kabul in accordance to his will. That shows how he was very loving person towards nature. He was also a tolerant and just ruler. He was not very cruel man. He used to understand and listen to his subjugated rulers. He was very kind ruler also. So Babur was never only in the battle he was a fierce ruler, but after winning over the battle, he was very just, kind, and he was a very tolerant ruler. However, his short-lived rule did not permit him to establish a central authority in his vast kingdom. So even though he occupied the central part of India, Bengal, Bihar on the eastern side, also the Delhi, still there was no powerful central authority after his death. Babur could not become the entire ruler of India. There was still conquest needed. So thus after his death, Humayun, his son and successor, was left with a kingdom that was held together only by force and fear, not loyalty. So when Babur died, naturally his son became the next emperor. Who was his son? His son was Humayun. So Humayun became the next Mughal ruler after Babur. But during the time of Humayun, how was the Delhi, how was the control of ruler over other kingdoms? During the time of Babur, it was by force and fear. The same continued with Humayun also. Everybody used to afraid of him, okay, because they have mighty army, they have very artillery, the powerful weapons and all. So all the kingdoms under the control of Mughals, those rulers, they used to be afraid of the Mughal rulers, but they were never loyal to these rulers. See, being loyal will make a ruler or an emperor more successful. If all his other rulers or other kings, if all the kings and an emperor were loyal to him, then the emperor would be more powerful. How long they can control these other kings with fear? So when Humayun was there, still that fear was there among all the kings. They were still not loyal to the emperor. So that was the situation during the time of Humayun. So you can see the map here. So this is a place, Kabul, to which Babur belongs. He first came and he occupied the Punjab region here, and later he slowly occupied the Delhi region here. So the Delhi region here, and after that, so Battle of Chanderi, and now Malwa was occupied. Later, like this, he slowly occupied the central Indian region. After that, he went to occupy Bengal from Afghan chiefs. Bengal and this entire Gangetic Valley was under his control, right? So like this was a vast empire established by Babur. So this was the map just representing what are the places under the control of Babur. So let us see what Humayun did after the death of his father. After the death of Babur, his eldest son Naziruddin Muhammad Humayun ascended the throne. He inherited a kingdom that was weak, unstable, and with a confused state of administration. See, after the death of Babur, the entire territory under the control of Babur was weak, unstable, and there was a confused state. Because as I told you just now, during the time of Babur, why all kings were very loyal to, they were not loyal actually. All the Rajput kings, all the defeated Afghan chiefs, they got defeated and they were afraid to attack again. Only that was the reason. But if Babur is not there, they may attack again. So that empire created by Babur was out of fear, not out of loyalty. If all these rulers were loyal to Babur, then they would always remain loyal, and the empire would be more strong. So during the time of Humayun, the empire created by Babur was weak because it was unstable, because at any time they may try attack these Rajputs and these Afghan chiefs. They may again try to recapture their territories, and the administration was very confused. Every territory had their own kind of administration and all. So when Humayun ascended the throne, he faced all these kind of situations. So during the time of Humayun, there was constant threats from the Afghans and the Rajputs. So they were not loyal to Mughals now. They were just afraid of the weapons and military that Mughals had. So they were afraid, and they were waiting for a chance to attack again the Mughals. So Humayun faced threats from Afghans and Rajputs. The weak Afghans still cherished the ambition of setting up their independent principalities. So on one side, when Humayun was the emperor of Delhi, on one side the Afghans in India were trying to recapture their territories. On the other hand, the Rajputs were also trying to recapture their territories. Let us see from Afghan side who was threat to Humayun. It was Sher Khan Suri, a powerful Afghan. So Sher Khan Suri, who was a powerful Afghan, he wanted to recapture his territories. So he was waiting for a chance to defeat Humayun or to attack Humayun. So from Rajput side, who was a threat to Humayun? It was Bahadur Shah. So Bahadur Shah, who was the ruler of Gujarat, okay, he was also waiting to control the Malwa region, and he wanted to extend his dominance over Rajasthan. So naturally, he was also having chances to attack Humayun. On the other hand, there was also threat from Humayun's half brothers. Who are half brothers? So that means his brothers. There was threat from brothers of Humayun, the Rajput kings, and the weak Afghan chiefs also. So Humayun faced a threat from these three categories of people. From Afghan side, Sher Khan Suri was waiting. From Rajput side, Bahadur Shah was waiting. And from this, I think Rajputs were separate. And Bahadur Shah, who was a Gujarat ruler, he was also waiting to attack Humayun because he wanted to extend to Rajasthan. And Rajputs were waiting to attack, and brothers of Humayun's were waiting to attack Humayun. So this many threats he was facing from the entire Indian subcontinent region. So Humayun's job was very tough by this time. Let us see what he did. So attack on Fort Chunar. So now Humayun was very clear about his enemies. Who are his enemies? One enemy was Sher Khan Suri, one enemy was Rajputs, another enemy was Bahadur Shah of Gujarat, and the other enemy was his brothers, right? So these are all the enemies. So first Humayun focused on Sher Khan Suri. So what he did, Humayun attacked the fort of Chunar, which was under the control of Sher Khan Suri. So focusing on his first enemy, Humayun attacked the fort of Chunar. Chunar was under the control of Sher Khan Suri. He laid siege to the fort only to abandon it after 4 months. So after 4 months, after capturing this fort of Chunar, he later gave it back. Okay. He abandoned the siege. He first captured the fort of Sher Khan Suri. Later he abandoned it. That means he left it. So to whom he left? So what Humayun did was, he occupied the fort of Chunar from Sher Khan Suri, but later he gave it back to him only because he wanted to keep him loyal. He doesn't want him to control. So what he said, he gave back his fort. Humayun signed a treaty with Sher Khan, which stated that Sher Khan could keep the fort as long as he would remain loyal to Mughals. So Humayun gave back his fort of Chunar to Sher Khan Suri with an agreement saying that as long as Sher Khan remains loyal to Mughals or Humayun, that fort belongs to Sher Khan Suri only. So with this agreement, he made a settlement with the Afghans, especially the powerful Afghan chief there, Sher Khan Suri. Why he abandoned suddenly and why he entered into an agreement with Sher Khan like this, there was a reason behind that. Because Bahadur Shah of Gujarat, he conquered Malwa. So I told you that Bahadur Shah of Gujarat, he wanted to expand his territories to Rajasthan, and he even in his conquest to occupy Rajasthan, this Bahadur Shah occupied Malwa. So Malwa was an important place for Mughals. So now Humayun has to immediately turn his attention to Bahadur Shah. So he made an agreement with Sher Khan Suri here, and he went back to conquer Bahadur Shah. So, and he has conquered Malwa there. So Bahadur Shah of Gujarat had conquered Malwa. Humayun then turned his attention to Malwa. So later what he did in Gujarat and Malwa, that we will see. When Humayun marched against Bahadur Shah, the latter offered no resistance to save his territories. Bahadur Shah instead escaped and went in hiding. Humayun recaptured Malwa as well as annexed the whole of Gujarat. When Humayun focused on his attention to recapture Malwa and try to attack Bahadur Shah did not fought a war at all. He got afraid of Humayun and he ran away. When Bahadur Shah ran away, even his places were under the control of. So now Bahadur Shah, when he attacked when Humayun attacked Bahadur Shah, he offered no resistance. That means he not even had a fight with Humayun. He ran away, and now even Humayun occupied his place Gujarat also. So thus Gujarat and Malwa was recaptured by Humayun, which was taken by Bahadur Shah, and also Humayun got even Gujarat because Bahadur Shah offered no resistance at all. He just left and he ran away. So thus his enemies of Afghans and Bahadur Shah was handled very efficiently by Humayun. So Afghan interlude, that means how again Afghans became troublesome for Mughals here, that we will see. Humayun's absence from Agra gave Sher Khan Suri an excellent opportunity to invade Bengal. So what happened was, initially Sher Khan entered into an agreement with Humayun, right? And Sher Khan projected himself as a very loyal person to Humayun. And because of this agreement and loyalty shown by Sher Khan, Humayun was focusing on Gujarat and Malwa. So Humayun was away from Delhi and Agra for a long period of time by now. So when Sher Khan understood that Humayun was in Gujarat and Malwa and he was not in Agra and Delhi, he attacked Bengal. He thought again it will be, anyhow Humayun was busy in Gujarat and Malwa conquest. So he betrayed, that means he disobeyed Humayun's authority and he went and occupied Bengal. And when Humayun learnt of Sher Khan's betrayal, he marched against him, leaving Gujarat and Malwa free for recapture by Bahadur Shah. Sher Khan invaded Bengal and captured the capital of city of Bengal, which was under Mughal Empire. He raided and looted the city of all its treasures. Then he went back to the city of Bihar. The vast wealth of glorious city of Bengal, depleted only to fill the war chest of Sher Khan. See the twist happened here. When Humayun was busy with Gujarat and Malwa conquest, Sher Khan went to capture Bengal, and this news was known to Humayun now. Now Humayun, what he did? He left Gujarat and Malwa and he wanted to go and recapture Bengal. When Humayun went to recapture Bengal, Gujarat and Malwa was again ready. Gujarat and Malwa was again open for Bahadur Shah to recapture. Bahadur Shah, earlier he ran away, right? But now when Humayun left these places, again Bahadur Shah was trying to recapture Gujarat and Malwa. So now Humayun left for Bengal. By this time, Sher Shah not only occupied Bengal, but he also proceeded to Bihar. Okay, so what he did in these Bengal and Bihar places, he looted all the treasures in Bengal. Okay, he occupied Bengal, he looted the treasures. Bengal was under the control of Mughals or under the control of Humayun, but this was taken control by Sher Shah now. So he even left to Bihar also. He even conquered Bihar also. See, Sher Khan, when Humayun was busy in Gujarat and Malwa, he went and occupied Bengal and Bihar. In 1539 CE, Sher Khan Suri defeated Humayun in the Battle of Chauza and later again in 1540 CE in the Battle of Kanauj. So when Humayun went to recapture Bengal and Bihar, there were two battles fought. They called Battle of Chauza and Battle of Kanauj. So in these two battles, surprisingly, Humayun lost the battle and Sher Khan Suri emerged victorious. So when Humayun lost the battle, he immediately fled to Sindh and then to Persia, where he took shelter with the king of Persia. Humayun, after losing the battle in Chauza and Kannauj, he left to Persia. Okay, he does not want to stay in Delhi, or because he being an emperor, he himself lost the war. So immediately he don't want to take any further steps. So he further left to Persia, and there he took shelter. The vast Mughal empire crumbled to the Afghans due to weak leadership. Now, such a vast empire created by Babur and later even Humayun, because of this decisive defeat in the hands of Sher Khan Suri, such a big Mughal empire, now it was left to Afghans. Sher Khan assumed the title of Sher Shah, and Humayun was forced to live in exile. So Sher Shah means like Sher Khan, he became the emperor of India now, and he till he was in India, Humayun was living in Persia. So this was the situations that happened after during the time of Humayun. So Sher Shah Suri, okay, he was a Afghan chief. After the decisive victory at Kannauj, Sher Khan Suri chased Humayun out of the country. As I told you, Humayun, after losing the battle of Kannauj and other battle, he left to Persia and he was taking shelter there. He was afraid to come back to attack again to rule in India. So Sher Khan emerged so powerful. So under the title of Sher Shah, Sher Khan Suri ascended the throne of Delhi and established the second Afghan rule in India. So thus there was a break to Mughal rule in India with Humayun's defeat with Sher Khan Suri.